Did you hear? Are you ready? Could these be the greatest Elvis recordings you've never heard? The king of rock and roll has risen again through the magic of previously unreleased studio recordings. Decades after his death, Elvis Presley continues to surprise and delight fans with hidden musical treasures that have been locked away in vaults until now. These 12 forgotten studio outtakes provide an intimate glimpse into the creative process of one of music's most iconic figures, capturing moments of pure musical genius, occasional frustration, and the undeniable charisma that made Elvis a legend. Number 12. Suspicious Minds, Take 6. The raw emotion version. The tension in the studio was palpable that January night in 1969. Elvis had just returned to prominence with his '68 comeback special, and the pressure was on to deliver something spectacular. Suspicious Minds would become one of his most celebrated songs. But what fans didn't know until now was how different the early takes sounded. Take 6 captured Elvis in a moment of raw, emotional vulnerability that didn't make the final cut. Producer Felton Jarvis later described it as too intense for the record-buying public. In this newly released version, Elvis's voice cracks slightly during the bridge, adding a layer of authenticity that some argue surpasses the polished official release. The outtake features extended instrumental sections where you can hear Elvis directing the band with impromptu instructions. "Let it breathe right here, boys," he says at the 2:14 mark, followed by a soulful hum that wasn't included in the final version. Backing vocalist Donna Thatcher later revealed that Elvis had tears in his eyes during this particular take. Sound engineer Al Pachucki's notes from the session, discovered alongside the tape, read, "EP emotional on this one. Consider for final, but watch vocal break at 2:46. That vocal break, once considered a flaw, now stands as testament to the genuine emotion Elvis poured into his performances even when the tape was just rolling for practice. Number 11. Kentucky Rain, Extended Studio Jam. Few people know that Kentucky Rain originally ran nearly 8 minutes long. This newly released studio jam captures Elvis and legendary pianist Ronnie Milsap, who played on the original recording, taking the song into bluesy territory that record executives deemed too experimental for Elvis's mainstream audience. The extended jam features Elvis improvising lyrics about a storm-soaked highway and memories that burn like fire that never made it to the album version. Around the 6:30 mark, you can hear Elvis laugh and say, "That's taking it a bit far even for me," before the band launches back into the familiar chorus. Session guitarist James Burton recently confirmed the authenticity of this recording. That was Elvis at his creative peak, just letting the music take him wherever it wanted to go. It's a shame people didn't get to hear this side of him more often. The tape reveals studio chatter, where Elvis discusses wanting to take the song somewhere unexpected, followed by him referencing Ray Charles as inspiration for the bluesy direction. Producer Felton Jarvis can be heard suggesting they run it back in, which ultimately led to the more commercial arrangement fans came to know. According to archive studio notes, this session took place at 3:15 a.m., after hours of recording, when inhibitions were lower and creativity flowed more freely. The relaxed atmosphere is evident in the casual way. Elvis directs the band and experiments with different vocal approaches. Number 10. In the Ghetto, First Draft Lyrics Version. Mac Davis wrote In the Ghetto, but this outtake reveals Elvis working through an earlier version of the lyrics that addressed poverty and social issues even more directly. This version includes 2 additional verses that were ultimately cut for being too politically charged, according to Davis in a 1998 interview. The alternate lyrics contain lines about politicians turning blind eyes, and a more explicit reference to racial inequality that RCA executives reportedly found too controversial for a mainstream Elvis release in 1969. You can hear Elvis discussing the lyrics with Davis over the studio talkback system, saying, "These words hit hard, Mac. Maybe too hard for some folks." What makes this outtake particularly special is hearing Elvis wrestle with the meaning of the song in real time. At one point he stops mid-verse and asks, "Are we going too far with this? I want people to hear the message." Davis responds, "Sing it how you feel it, Al." The resulting take has an urgency and rawness missing from the final version. Engineer Mike Moran's notes indicate that this was the second take of the song ever recorded before anyone had fully settled on the arrangement. The vulnerable quality of Elvis's voice suggests he was still finding his emotional connection to the material, resulting in a performance that some Elvis historians consider more authentic than the released version. Elvis's longtime friend Jerry Schilling was present during this session and later recalled, "Elvis really wanted to say something important with this song. Some of what got cut out was what moved him most about the lyrics." Number 9. Burning Love, blues arrangement. Before Burning Love became the up-tempo rock hit we know, Elvis experimented with a slower blues-infused arrangement that completely transforms the song. This newly released outtake from 1972 shows the King taking one of his most famous late-career hits in a dramatically different direction. The blues version clocks in at nearly 6 minutes, with Elvis improvising vocal runs that showcase his deep connection to blues music, the genre that influenced him profoundly in his youth. Around the 4-minute mark, Elvis calls out to guitarist James Burton, "Take it home, James," leading to an extended guitar solo not found in the commercial release. Producer Felton Jarvis can be heard on the recording suggesting they pick up the tempo, which ultimately led to the more energetic version that became a hit. Elvis's response is telling, "The slow burn feels more honest to me, but I guess we gotta make people dance." Backing vocalist Kathy Westmoreland later commented that this blues arrangement was Elvis returning to his roots and that he seemed particularly invested in this version. He closed his eyes through most of the take, which was always a sign he was feeling something deeply, she noted in her memoir. The tape includes nearly a minute of Elvis discussing blues, phrasing with the band before counting them in, demonstrating his musical knowledge and specific vision for the song. His detailed instructions to the horn section reveal an artist who knew precisely the sound he wanted, even if commercial considerations ultimately pushed the song in another direction. Number 8. Always on My Mind, raw solo, piano version. Perhaps the most emotionally devastating of the newly released outtakes, this version of Always on My Mind features just Elvis and a piano, recorded late one night in March 1972, just weeks after his separation from Priscilla. While the released version features full orchestration, this stripped-down take captures Elvis in a moment of profound vulnerability. Studio logs revealed this recording wasn't even planned. Elvis had remained in the studio after the scheduled session ended and began playing the song on piano himself. Engineer Al Pachucki, recognizing the moment's importance, quietly kept the tape rolling. At the 2:35 mark, Elvis's voice noticeably wavers on the line, "Little things I should have said and done," and he takes a lengthy pause before continuing. The raw emotion in his delivery suggests he wasn't performing for an audience, but rather working through his own personal pain. Pianist Glenn D. Hardin, who played on the official version, has authenticated this outtake, saying, "That's definitely Elvis on piano. He wasn't a technical pianist, but he played with feeling and this was clearly a deeply personal moment for him. The recording ends with several seconds of silence, followed by Elvis saying quietly, "I don't think I can do another one of those right now," unaware that the moment had been captured for posterity. Longtime Elvis confidant Charlie Hodge later confirmed that he had never seen Elvis as emotionally raw in a recording session as he was that night. Number 7. Suspicious Minds, Studio Argument Version. This remarkable outtake captures more than just music. It documents a heated creative disagreement between Elvis and producer Felton Jarvis over the song's arrangement. The tape begins with a completed take of the song, followed by Elvis saying, "That fade and return at the end doesn't work for me, Felton. Let's cut that." What follows is 4 minutes of spirited debate about the song's structure, with Elvis arguing that the fade out and fade in, which ultimately became one of the song's most distinctive features, felt gimmicky. Jarvis can be heard defending the choice as innovative and something that will make people remember the record. The historical significance of this outtake can't be overstated, as it provides rare documentation of Elvis actively shaping his sound and fighting for his creative vision. At one point, Elvis says with clear frustration, "I know what works for my voice and what doesn't," to which Jarvis responds, "And I know what works on radio." Session bassist Jerry Scheff later wrote about this moment in his autobiography, noting, "Elvis usually deferred to producers on technical decisions, but with Suspicious Minds he felt strongly about the arrangement. It was one of the few times I saw him really dig his heels in about a production choice." The recording ends with a compromise being reached, and Elvis saying, "All right, we'll try it your way, but I still think it's overproduced." The irony, of course, is that the fade-out, fade-in became one of the song's most memorable elements, proving that sometimes creative tension produces iconic results. Number 6. Moody Blue, Alternate Lyrics Version. Moody Blue, one of Elvis's final hits, released before his death, originally had substantially different lyrics that painted a much darker picture of the relationship described in the song. This outtake from 1976 features Elvis singing lines that were ultimately replaced with the more radio-friendly version fans know. In this earlier draft, instead of the relatively gentle Moody Blue, like the mood I'm in, Elvis sings about deeper emotional struggles, darkest blue, like the depths I'm in. The chorus contained references to nights of whiskey and pills and memories that kill that were removed from the final version at the insistence of RCA executives. Sound engineer, Tom Brown recalled, Elvis connected with those original lyrics when the decision came to soften them. He pushed back initially. He kept saying, "This is the truth of it," but eventually gave in to the commercial considerations. At the 3:12 mark in the outtake, Elvis stops singing and says to producer Felton Jarvis, "Are we sure we want to water this down? Feels like we're pulling punches." The conversation that follows provides fascinating insight into the commercial pressures Elvis faced even as an established star. The tape also captures Elvis discussing his declining health in a casual aside to guitarist James Burton, saying, "Voice isn't what it used to be, James. Getting through these sessions takes more out of me than it did." This poignant comment, caught almost accidentally on tape, adds another layer of meaning to what would become one of his final recordings. Number 5. Way Down, Gospel Arrangement. Elvis's love for gospel music is well documented, but this alternative version of Way Down transforms the rock song into a full gospel arrangement, complete with organ, choir, and Elvis, testifying like a preacher between verses. This 1976 outtake reveals that even late in his career, Elvis was still experimenting and returning to his spiritual roots. The session began as a standard recording of Way Down, But after 2 conventional takes, Elvis reportedly said, "Let me try something different." What followed was a complete rearrangement that drew heavily from the church music of his youth. Backrack singer J.D. Sumner, who held the record for the lowest bass note ever recorded on a commercial song, reached on the official version of Way Down, recalled, "Elvis just transformed right before our eyes. Suddenly it wasn't the rock session anymore. We were in church. He had tears in his eyes by the end." The outtake includes Elvis introducing each band member for individual solos, something he often did in his live performances, but rarely in studio recordings. Around the 5-minute mark, he launches into a semi-improvised spiritual monologue about finding light in darkness that provides a window into his religious beliefs. Pianist Tony Brown noted in an interview decades later that this session represented Elvis at his most authentic. When he went gospel, that's when you knew you were getting the real Elvis, the one who would have been a preacher if he hadn't become a singer. Number 4. Unchained Melody, first attempt. The officially released version of Unchained Melody, recorded live in April 1977 during one of Elvis's final concerts, has become legendary for powering both the power and fragility of his late career voice. What wasn't known until now is that Elvis had attempted to record a studio version 2 months earlier. This February 1977 outtake captures Elvis struggling significantly with the challenging vocal parts, stopping several times to catch his breath. At one point, he says, "This one's fighting me today," before attempting the high note again. The recording provides a painfully honest document of Elvis confronting his physical limitations. Despite the difficulties, there are moments of extraordinary beauty in this version, particularly in the quieter passages where Elvis brings a lifetime of experience to the lyrics. Producer Felton Jarvis can be heard encouraging him. "That's got feeling, Elvis. Don't worry about the technical stuff." Elvis's physician, Dr. George Nichopoulos, was present during this session and can be heard briefly consulting with Elvis during a break asking, "Do you need something for your throat?" This casual interaction provides a glimpse into the medical issues Elvis was battling during his final recording sessions. The tape concludes with Elvis deciding to set the song aside, saying, "Let's come back to this one, voice, isn't there today?" The poignancy of this moment is amplified by the knowledge that he would never return to the studio to complete it, instead performing the song live in what would become one of his final recorded performances. Number 3. Are You Lonesome Tonight? Spoken word extended version. The famous laughing version of Are You Lonesome Tonight, where Elvis breaks into giggles during the spoken word section, has been a beloved curiosity among fans for decades. This newly released outtake reveals that Elvis originally recorded a much longer spoken monologue for the song, nearly 3 minutes of Shakespeare-inspired reflection on love and loss. In the extended version, Elvis recites additional lines that reference Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet, prodding his little-known appreciation for literature. Assistant producer Ernst Jorgensen confirmed, "Elvis was more well-read than his public image suggested. He had a genuine appreciation for Shakespeare and often quoted passages to the confusion of those around him." Around the 4:20 mark, Elvis stops and says to the control room, "Is this too much? People might think I'm putting on airs." The discussion that follows reveals Elvis's self-consciousness about revealing this more intellectual side of himself to his audience. The recording engineer's notes indicate this was the first approach they tried for the song, before deciding on the shorter spoken segment that appeared in the final version. Colonel Tom Parker can be heard commenting that the extended literary references might be a bit much for the typical fan, which apparently influenced the decision to simplify. Backing vocalist Myrna Smith later recalled, "Elvis loved noting different aspects of his personality in his music. But there was always this concern about alienating his audience. The Shakespeare stuff was pure Elvis, though. He really did walk around quoting those passages. Number 2. Jailhouse Rock, 1976, reimagining. 20 years after recording one of his signature songs, Elvis returned to Jailhouse Rock in 1976 with a completely different approach. This outtake captures Elvis reinventing his early rock and roll anthem as a world-weary blues number, slowing the tempo dramatically and adding new vocal inflections that transform the song's meaning. The session notes describe this as a personal project of Elvis's, something he wanted to try without any intention of commercial release. Guitarist James Burton recalled, "Elvis said he wanted to sing it like a man who'd actually been to jail, not like the kid he was in the movie. It was eerie how different it felt." At several points in the recording, Elvis stops to give specific directions about the mood he's seeking. Darker Boys. This isn't a teen dance number anymore. The resulting version has a haunting quality, with Elvis's weathered voice bringing new gravity to the familiar lyrics. Around the 3:40 mark, Elvis adds completely improvised lyrics, not in the original, singing about time that steals your youth away and dancing to forget the bars, metaphorical additions that add layers of meaning to the once simple rock song. Producer Felton Jarvis can be heard suggesting they released this version as a single, to which Elvis responds with a laugh and confuse the hell out of everybody. Maybe someday, but not now. That someday has finally arrived, though Elvis didn't live to see it. Number 1, Bridge Over Troubled Water, Church Rehearsal. Perhaps the most surprising of all the outtakes is this recording of Elvis rehearsing Bridge Over Troubled Water in an empty church in Memphis in 1970, accompanied only by himself on the church piano. The recording quality is remarkably good for what was essentially an informal practice session, captured by a portable recorder operated by Elvis's friend Jerry Schilling. What makes this recording extraordinary is the setting. The natural reverb of the church sanctuary gives Elvis's voice an ethereal quality unlike any of his official releases. According to Schilling, Elvis had asked to use the church, which he had attended occasionally, during off hours to feel the song in the right space. At the beginning of the tape, Elvis can be heard saying, "This song feels like a hymn to me, not a pop song," before playing the first delicate piano chords. His performance is hesitant at times as he was still learning the song, but the emotional connection is undeniable. Midway through, Elvis stops and says to himself, "The bridge needs to soar more," before trying again with a more dramatic approach to the chorus. This process of self-direction offers a rare glimpse into Elvis's artistic process when he thought no one was evaluating him. Priscilla Presley confirmed the authenticity of this recording in a recent interview, saying, "Elvis would often find spaces with natural acoustics to practice. He believed different environments brought out different aspects of his voice. Churches were special to him because of his gospel roots." The recording ends with Elvis playing the final chord and sitting in silence for nearly 30 seconds before saying quietly, "That's it. That's how it needs to feel." The tape captures the sound of his footsteps walking away from the piano, a hauntingly intimate conclusion to this newly discovered collection. Could these 12 forgotten recordings change how we understand Elvis? Will fans hear the man behind the legend in these unguarded studio moments? Isn't it remarkable how even decades after his death, Elvis Presley can still surprise us with new facets of his artistry?